What's going on, Next Gen fam? Welcome back to Mentor Momentum with Next Gen HQ. I cannot wait for you to check out this week's episode. We got to sit down with Rachel Rath, the director of the BARDA Alliance at Johnson & Johnson's Innovation Labs, or JLABS. We dive into so much in this episode, from the importance of being able to keep moving in your career and understanding when perhaps it's time for a pivot or time to take a new role. We even talk about some of the habits that Rachel has on a daily basis that allow her to truly live in the moment and see everything she's doing as part of a much bigger and broader process towards striving towards that ultimate success. So this is an absolute gem of an episode. I can't wait for you to check it out. This is Mentor Momentum featuring Rachel Rath. Kind of starting at the very beginning and looking back, as you were coming out of college, is there one piece of advice that you would give to your 20-year-old self looking back right now?
Careers aren't linear, and each experience is an opportunity to grow and learn. And maybe that first job you get out of college isn't your dream job, but you can learn something from it, whether it's preferences for a work style or a skill set, frankly. Maybe it's a new software. But you can learn something that you take with you to your next job, and keeping an open mind about what those could be, but also then taking the time to reflect. And, for me, I started college as a political science major. I ended college with a degree in international relations and pre-med, thinking I wanted to go to medical school. And then I ended up getting a master's in public health and a master's in business administration. And so what you think those goalposts are when you're 20, sometimes they move, and sometimes they're frankly better than what you even thought. So I would just say, remember that careers aren't linear. Be open-minded about opportunities, and take the time to reflect on what they are.
Was there a moment you went through, or a process that you can look back and remember when you transferred majors, or you were like, you know what, I feel empowered to be able to make a change that's going to put me on a path that's more in line with, who I want to be?
One of the big moments for me was actually after college graduation. I had a job, but was able to also have an opportunity shadowing at a local hospital one day a week. And I grew up in a family of physicians. I felt like I was pretty exposed to the healthcare community. But by taking that other step to have one day a week where I shadowed an actual physician in a hospital, I really became acutely aware that I didn't want to provide one-on-one patient care. And at the time, I was also working as a behavioral therapist for kids with autism spectrum disorders, also getting that one-on-one experience. And that wasn't for me. And so that was a big point where I had to say, okay, I thought I wanted to go to medical school. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I thought I wanted to provide one-on-one care, but I don't. So what do I like? What stands out for me? How can I still be involved in health and healthcare without going that path? And so for me, that's where I took the time to reflect, with thinking about some of those courses in college I'd taken, those professors who's, and researched, frankly, the professors that I had really felt a connection with, what was their career trajectory, and talking to them, and then figuring out, okay, well, maybe I should get a master's in public health and look more at that population level. So that was one big moment that stands out to me.
When you look back on that journey and that path, one thing we love to talk about at NextGen is the mistakes that you might have made, because mistakes and failures are an incredible way to learn and then keep moving forward. So you being in industry longer and being able to give some more advice to this next generation, is there one mistake you feel like you've made along your career, and a lesson perhaps that comes with it that our people can avoid as they're looking to kind of grow and scale?
So I love the sort of focus on mistakes and failures as lessons and opportunities, and really just completely agree with that. I think, again, you learn so much from every experience, whether you expected to or not, or you made a mistake, and it's how you overcome that. I think that one of the mistakes or missed opportunities maybe that I had was almost more recently. So I went to college, and then I took a couple years and worked, and then I got my MPH, and then I took a couple years and worked, and then I got my MBA. And I think by the time I went back to go get my MBA, and I was working throughout the graduate degrees as well, but by the time I went back to get my MBA, I think I knew where my career trajectory was going at that point. I was working in small nonprofits, before going to grad school, I was working in small nonprofits while in graduate school.
Wow.
And at that point, I thought that's where I wanted my career to stay. And so I think my missed opportunity was actually kind of losing sight of other potential pivots along the way. I knew I wanted to work in global health. I liked public-private partnerships, and I wasn't necessarily thinking out of the box or of other pivots. So the missed opportunity for me was that when I was in the MBA program at Georgetown, go Hoyas, I was focused on the electives and the classes fitting the nonprofit track. And I missed the opportunity to think about that future pivot that I ended up making, frankly, is to Johnson & Johnson and those bigger multinational organizations. So I think in lines of sort of mistakes, don't lose sight that no matter where you are in your career or what part of your education, you can still make other pivots. And those opportunities are never closed, and you just don't know what other opportunities are out there.
So one question we love to ask is understanding a life habit that you've built for yourself that allows you to either enjoy life more, set yourself up for greater success generally, whether it is work or just life, but something that our people might not be thinking about, given that when you're young, you just work all the time, and that might not be the best recipe for everyone.
Yeah, I think one of the habits that I can continuously improve on, but I do think has really helped me over the last several years and over, frankly, my lifetime, is I've always been someone who writes a lot. And I don't even necessarily want to say journaling, but writing things down in the moment or at the end of the day, because I think one thing that is true for personal life. And I don't just listen, I take lots of notes in meetings and I'm frantically scribbling things down all the time. And that's a way that I process information, is through writing it. But I think that's true in your personal life as well. And writing down those, is it tough conversations you're having? Is it fights you're having with someone that you wish you handled differently? But writing things down, and what I think is important about that is your reaction in the moment or that same day may be very different than 6 months or a year later when you're thinking about it. So being able to go back to notes and look at it, and I'd say in my personal life I do that with tough conversations I've had, a really impactful moment, so that I can go back and see what those were, but also with sort of little goals along the way. If I'm changing workout routines or habits. It's the new year. We've many of us have made New Year's resolutions, whether it's even writing down like new recipes I've tried that I've liked, what did I like about it? Just writing things down and then being able to go back and reflect on them has been a habit that across my professional and personal life, I think has helped me.
We have, a final question that was submitted by an incredible NextGen community member, Adam Sobol, doing amazing things with his company, CareBand. Just an awesome human being who's curious to know, that by 2030, they're saying that healthcare will be centered more on empowering patients and preventing diseases rather than seeking treatment, which obviously, the healthcare space more than me, but that all seems to check out in my mind. But with this in mind, how do you see J&J's business shifting to support patients earlier on in their clinical journey?
So I love thinking about the future and where we're going, and that's really exciting for me, I would say, in my role as well. So I lead our partnership for Johnson & Johnson Innovation, JLABS, with BARDA, which is a component of the US government. And we're really looking at areas of mutual interest between BARDA and J&J to build on that future preparedness, pandemic prevention, ways to more readily detect and then address global health threats as they come. And we are focused on the future. So I love to ask questions to my stakeholders of where do you want this field to be in 15, 20 years? I think one of the big shifts we'll see in an area of interest for this Blue Knight collaboration between J&J and BARDA is where healthcare takes place. And so when we think about, in the past, healthcare has traditionally taken place in hospitals and clinics and what we think of as the health system. And now healthcare moving outside of those walls. So how do we detect diseases earlier outside of the traditional healthcare system? How do we stratify disease severity earlier and outside the system? And how do we do diagnostics earlier and outside? And that's a huge component of science and technology innovation, but it's also thinking about who that end user is and making sure as we think about healthcare moving outside of the traditional healthcare physical spaces, the end user changes. So you or I, Andrew, need to be able to use those technologies, those diagnostics that are really, truly easy to use. That's not a barrier for use. And so thinking about, I think as we move towards 2030 or 2040 and into the future, the place where healthcare is taking place is going to be beyond the walls of our traditional healthcare systems. And then how do we catch science and technology up to that point so it's ready for the end user?
That was Mentor Momentum, sharing life and business lessons from incredible leaders. Looking for more momentum? Subscribe to our weekly Momentum newsletter at nextgenhq.com and check out our other podcast, Momentum Audio, on any of your favorite podcast channels. Now that's momentum.